Okay, I will create now the posts entity and define our first relation. So I'll make things a little bit more fast. So posts dot entity dot TypeScript, and I will import from TypeORM the column and the entity and the primary generated column, and I will import the users entity and the shared properties we created. And let me define the class. So export posts entity that extends the shared properties, and this is the name of the entity, and we will have the auto incremented ID as a primary key. We have the title as a string. We have the body as text, so the type will be text, which accepts more bytes than the varchar. And we can just put it inside our connection, but first we need to export it. So export from posts entity. I know I did not put passwords in the users. I will do videos about the password and how we can handle them, hash them, and everything. So now I will also put this, import it here. And let me just do something. So entities will be an array with the user entity and the posts entity, and now we can remove everything from here. So when you have the same token in an object and in a variable, you don't need to put it twice. So you don't need to put this like this. You just add it here. Just put the name of the key and it will look for something that is similar to it. And why I did this, because I want to just console log the entities that I created. So entities, after you synchronize for each entity, just console log created, and now the entity don't name. I wanted to show you this. I think this is one of the strange things in JavaScript, which I think you can read about it. It's I think has to do something with the prototypal behavior of the objects in JavaScript, and how almost everything is an object. So each function we create, for example, this d function has a set of properties. So d.name, which is d. So if this was named Ruad, this would be Ruad. Name would be Ruad. And we have the length, which is the length of the arguments. So, and the length would be 2 in this case. But these are classes, right? So the posts, all of these are classes. This is something to remember, that JavaScript does not have classes. These are constructor functions, and functions are objects. Yeah, just remember that. You can Google about it more if you want. This is how I can get the name for each entity, and I will make it blue, and I need to import the colors. So import colors. Okay, this is good, but I did not define the relation. So let's return to our posts entity, and let's import two things. One thing is the many to one, and the join column. Okay, so these are two decorators. So add many to one, user entity. So what this means, many posts belongs to one user, right? And you need to pass arguments here. The first one is a callback or a strings that defines the other part of the relation. So now we are in the posts. Now define the users things. So this references a table, which is the user entity. You can pass also a string like this. But if you want to do some setup work, you can do this. And in the decorators, you can't access properties inside the class. So the setup work will be from maybe a static function in a class or something like this, or a singleton, global singleton, which has static functions. And another thing will be how we can reference the posts from the other relation, from the other table. and this would be like this. So user.posts. So this tells us that this is complaints because we don't have the users, the posts inside our user entity. So we need to create that. And what will this do? It will create inside the posts entity a column called user ID like this, which is a foreign key. I don't like this. We can just add join column, override that like this. But remember that everything is by default nullable true. So to make this false, so it won't accept a posts without a user, define a column which is the user ID of type number, and this will be, give it a name like this, and type, and sorry, nullable will be false. So TypeORM is also smart enough to know that these two, and sorry, that column created for using this decorator is referencing this one here. So this is cool thing. Now we need to go to the other part of the relation and define something that is like the opposite of that. So one to many here. So add one to many, which will reference the posts entity. And here how we can reference the user for each post. So post of type post entity will return the post dot user, and posts will be of type array, since this is one to many relation of posts entities. And if you can pass a third option, which is there's a lot of good things, but one of them is the on delete and on update. So cascade and on update cascade. So if a user got deleted or updated, this will handle that. I think that's it. So let's run it. So after this, I'll just fake some data and start working on the routes and our controllers. So created post entity, created user entity, and created post entity, which is nice. So let me go to my database, refresh. We should have the users and the posts, as you can see, which is nice. This is the user ID as underscore, which references this table. Yeah, and as you can see, TypeORM, like I said, is smart enough to understand that. And this is not nullable. So if I remove this, we will see the same column. So let me refresh, but it's nullable. Okay. Now refresh. Yeah, I think now I can just start the next video.